Thank you so much. Dignities on the dais and of the dais, Dr. Gupta ji, Mr. Rastogi ji, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is one of the important summit we have today. This is, we call it International Climate Summit. And I think it is very right time we have in the country. If you look at the climate changes in the country and their impacts on the agricultural productions, I think in the years to come we have to think in a different way so that we can sustain our natural resources, we can sustain our agricultural production, and also we can save our Mother Earth. If I take a simple example that how climate is changing and what are their impacts on the crop production, especially with respect to the wheat, rice and the maize. If there is an increase in temperature of around 1 degree Celsius, I think we may lose almost 3 to 4% of the wheat productions. That accounts around 4 million tons in a country when the temperature is more than 34 degrees Celsius at the time of the grain filling in the wheat, and we call it terminal heat. And if the same thing continues of around 1 degree Celsius increase in temperature again, in case of the rice, we may lose almost 6% of the total productions. That will be around 8 to 9 million tons in the country. But the maize is more resilient when we compare it with the rice and wheat. And because of that, we may not face such a major challenges when there is a slight increase in temperature or slight decrease in temperature or slight increase in rainfall or decrease in rainfall. Because being a C4 plants, it has more resilience as compared to the other cereal crops, that is rice and wheat. Another example is that when there is an increase in temperature by 1 degree Celsius, I think we require 10% more irrigation water. It means we are pumping more water from the ground. And because of that, we are facing a lot of problems, especially in the northwestern part of the country, and that is in Punjab, Haryana, and the western Uttar Pradesh. If you look at the data of the last few decades back, I think around 75% of the fresh water is being utilized for agricultural purposes. Now it is come down to less than 45%. So it means that we need more productions from the less water and also from the less soils, because most of the cultivated lands are going for urbanization, going for the factories and other things. So I think now there is a philosophy that we have to have in mind that we have to produce more grains from the less inputs and for the more profit so that farmers can get the maximum benefits from that. So why this climate summit is very much related to the corn revolution. Revolution is not a new thing basically. We means our country experienced a revolution in 1960s, at the time of the Green Revolution, that was in the rice and the wheat. So it means in the morning, I think one of our panelists or one of the presenters said that we are very far behind in terms of the productions. We have only 40 plus million tons in case of maize, whereas in case of the rice and wheat, we have around more than 100 plus million tons of productions. But on the other sides, the revolution that was experienced by this country 7 decades back in case of the rice and wheat, and now we are thinking about the revolution. That's why the production of the maize is less when we compare with the rice and wheat. It means we are 7 decades trailed by the rice and wheat. Of course, at the time of the Green Revolution, the maize was a major food crop, but it was derailed. It was derailed and the place was occupied by the rice and wheat. That's why the production is less. But now looking to the passion, looking to the encouragement, looking to the support and the cooperation from the government side in the years to come, or I should say by the Amrit Kal, by 2047, I think we may get the place that we should be, and that will be more than 100 plus million tons of the productions of the maize in the country. Now, and there are some of the factors that are responsible, that force us to think about the corn revolutions, and that is the ethanol policy of the government of India that came into 2018. Of course, it was started long back in 2004 by the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. Now it is again restructured by the Modi's government, and I am very thankful to the government of India that they started this policy of ethanol policy, and because of that now we are thinking about the major corn revolution. Why climate summit and why climate and corn revolution are similar? Because around 70% of the area under the maize is under rainfed situations. Only 30% we have under the irrigated conditions. So 70% is directly related to the climate or weather abnormalities, I should say, or weather conditions, whether it is rainfall, whether it is temperature, whether it is humidity, whether it is soil quality and the other, soil quality and the other things. So in case of when we have a rainfall situations, I take again one of the best examples. Earlier, we are having almost 40 to 45 rain days in the country, 40 to 45 rain days in the country, especially in the Northwest India. Right now, we have only 20 to 22 days, 20 to 22 rainy days only. It means the rainy days goes down by 50%. And most of the showers, most of the rains we are getting in 2 or 3 times only. That is around sometimes more than 70 millimeters, sometimes more than 80 millimeters. So most of the rainwater is going drain off in the nalas or in the rivers, or it is going back to the sea. In that situations, I think we need to develop some of the best management strategies. We have to breed some of the best cultivars in the country so that we can sustain our maize production. Some of the scientists, some of the stakeholders, I should say, some of the stakeholders of the maize, they are always talking about the dent corn. But I think we should go into deep, and we should understand whether we are able to grow dent corn in the country or not. Because dent corn requires the cold climate, and we do have a cold climate, but in very less area. If you look at the distribution of the different varieties of the corn, whether it is flint corn, dent corn, semi-flint, semi-dent, and dent corn, we have only 4% area in the dent corn, and that is very much restricted to the Himalayan region, especially the area we are very restricted to the Himalayan region, and where we are going mostly for the composite varieties, because there most of the farmers, most of the populations are using the maize as a food crop, not as a feed, not for the ethanol. Most of the varieties, whatever we have, whether it is from the private sector or public sectors, in my knowledge, from my perspective, I never distinguish between the private and public. We all are fighting for the maize revolution in the country. Around 33% or around 30% comes under the semi-dent on the semi-flint corn. The rest is flint corn, and only 4% is dent corn. So I think whatever the target, we have to identify the domains through the suitability mapping, and we have to identify that which area goes for what type of the corns. Then only we can think of the higher productions with the high starch recovery. Of course, dent corn have high starch content of around 65% to 70%. However, the other crop may be semi-dent and semi-flint that has around 58 to 65%. So, but in our conditions, because we have most of the tropical climatic conditions, and in tropical climatic conditions, tropical and subtropical climatic conditions, where we have almost more than 80% of the maize cultivation in the country, we cannot think of pure dent corn in the country. That's why I think we have to devise the strategies. We have divided the best varieties for the rainfed situations, for the tropical and subtropical conditions. There are some other areas regarding the ethanol. Sometimes we are also talking about the import of the corn from the other countries. But in my personal opinion, I am not in favor of that import of the corn for ethanol purposes. When you are going for the import for the corn for the ethanol in the country, better you import the crude oil. So there is no need to no need to go for processing and producing the ethanol in the country. I don't think it will serve our purpose, because on the one side we are talking about the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and on other sides we have something in mind that I think the import should be allowed for the maize. But in my personal opinion, I am not in favor of that. Another aspect is GM crops, genetically modified crops. If you look at the benefits of the GM crops all across the world, it is not more than 5 to 6% advantage over the other corns. So rather than having the GM crops, I think the government of India, the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, and I am very thankful to the Secretary there, Dr. M.L. Jat, that they have started one of the best programs in the country for the gene editing. And I think we have received already 2 gene-edited crops in case of the rice. And maybe in the years to come, maybe in 1 year or 2 years, I think, or maybe 3 years, I think we are also have on the same page. And there will be some gene-edited lines for the maize that has high starch content. And because of that, I think we can achieve the high ethanol recovery. The ethanol recovery still it is an issue in the country. We have only 38 to 40% ethanol recovery. And when we compare with the US, Brazil, and the other American countries, I think it is around 4 to 5% less. But again, they have dent corn, we have semi-dent and semi-flint corn. But even then we are trying, being a research organization, we are trying our best, and I think maybe in 3 or 4 years, there are some of the varieties you will have on the ground that contains almost 40 to 43% of the ethanol recovery from the same semi-dent and the semi-plant corn varieties. DDGS is also issue. Most of the, any feed industries are talking about the DDGS also. But the DDGS, if you look at the DDGS content, of course the protein content is less. It is around only 25 to 30% protein. When you compare it with the rice DDGS, when we compared about the rice DDGS, it is 40 and 45%. But the quantity is double in case of the maize as compared to the rice. So when we take into that account, I think the protein content is more or less same. But of course, even then it may be enriched with the other DDGS that may be from the soybean or that may be from the rice also. And another things that how we can increase the productivity, because sir, last 1 minute I will take. How we can increase the productivity? So for that we have already developed the roadmap and share with our department, SMD, and the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, and also with the other state governments also. There are two ways. One is how to increase in area, and another is to increase the productivity. There are only two ways that we have. But increase in area is not possible. Right now, I think we have around 12 million hectare area, and the area is increasing at a speed of around 10% in the country. But this is not required. We do not require this much of the area expansion in the maize. Rather than we are putting more pressures on the increase in productivity. And that is not only through the best varieties, but also through the best management practices. Right now we have a varieties, what we are identifying and we are notifying the varieties that has potential more than 10 tons per hectare. We have already fixed the target of producing the varieties of around 12 tons per hectare in the country. When we achieve this much of the target and we release this much of the targeted varieties, I think our production or our productivity, that is around 3.5 tons per hectare, it will go up to 4.5 or maybe 5 tons per hectare, maybe in the coming 3 or 4 years. So we are thinking by 2030, I think we will be able to produce around 70 million tons of the maize in the country. And that will be sufficient to meet out the requirement of ethanol industry. That will be around 25 to 30% of the total. Sufficient to meet out the poultry requirement for feed, that is around 40%, and for the animal feed and the food and other purposes. So I am very happy to share, and also I am very happy to share that our contribution in the ethanol production in the country, a contribution of maize is ranging from 40 to 50% within a span of 2.5 years. Before that it was less than 2%. And this is the contribution from you all stakeholders. So I am very thankful to all the stakeholders of the maize, Government of India, all the research organizations, and also I am very thankful to Gupta ji and Dr. Rastogi ji that they invite me to be here to discuss on the maize. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ashis Raj, for sharing your insights.